Hello?
Hi.
Not working. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sweet. Got this new Bluetooth headset.
All right, there.
Yes, hear you too. Just find the meeting.
Hearing. I hate computers. They never seem to work.
That's why we're here. It's always a job.
All right, 2 seconds. I'm gonna jump out and again, maybe stuff will work then.
Niels, I see you have a Red Hat hat, but it says you're at Microsoft.
Yes. Well, that's the fun of open source. We're all partners, aren't we?
I actually work for Red Hat, but yeah, and I used to work for Microsoft. So
Okay, well, pleasure to meet you.
yeah, you too.
I have sound.
I also have a gray hat from Red Hat, but for some reason it doesn't work as well as the Red Hat.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I could go. They just sent me. I just started with them like a month ago, but they sent me one of these guys.
Ooh, the real one.
Yeah. I don't think I'm gonna wear that on this call though. If you come visit me in Chicago.
Well, for me, it's basically hiding my horrible hair today because bad hair day.
No problem.
Every day's a bad hair day for some of us, but yeah.
Not me. I never have a bad hair day.
Yeah, I'm considering. Well, just need the beard to be a little bit more, so makes up for the yeah.
Yeah.
Josh, you updated some things in the
Yeah.
document.
Oh, you didn't see what I did there? Yeah, I kind of dropped a whole lot of thoughts about. I was kind of hoping we could go through. Well, we could start in a couple minutes, if people want to join, but
Yeah.
talk about the survey. And I put in a bunch of thoughts, like how maybe we can work on that. But I was hoping you could lead us through that, and then I want to talk about patterns for patterns. And then the last thing, I just kind of wanted to keep on our radar the whole infrastructure resource model thing.
Yeah.
So just was going to bring that up again.
Just so you know, when you update the headers and stuff like that, it updates the what's it called in English? Document outline, I guess that's what Google calls it. So what I did when I set up stuff originally, I just deleted everything that wasn't the date of the meeting, and then that actually continues to work. So if you want to have this kind of outline for a meeting, we should have a template of some sort at the very end, so we can just copy that. But for that to work, we need to then delete the subheaders from that meeting overview thing, or else it's just going to get crazy on the side here. So
okay, I'll add in a template one, like a next.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. I go back and forth between Office and not. So every time I plug in my laptop somewhere new, there's a totally new setup. Where's Slack now? Oh, there's Slack.
You could probably get started in a minute.
Yeah, I think so. There's some people that we could have, sent a ping to, but at this point, I think we're very clear when the meeting was. Scott, who was on here the last meeting and helped a lot, he's offline, so he is probably offline.
I talked with Thomas earlier today, but he said he wasn't going to make it.
No. Well, people are busy.
Yeah. That's
why
we have the notes.
Absolutely. All right. We can. I guess we just start then. We are recording these meetings, but I don't think either me or Josh have any access to getting the meetings out and then publishing them. So I think that's something we still have some housekeeping things that needs to get done when it comes to access and things like that. But we have a couple of things here. I have the user survey as an agenda. I can just start with that. So the idea was that I was gonna get set up some questions that we could use for the survey, and then obviously when end of the year, all of a sudden there's a lot of deadlines that apparently needs to be kept. So as I haven't really had time to do anything in particular, I just have a couple of questions, and I think we need to talk a little bit what we want to get out of it, so I can so it'd be easier to set some questions. So far I have stuff like I've written down, does your company utilize cloud native technology? But I guess if it's sent out to people in the Cloud Native Computing Foundation sphere, that's going to be yes in like 90% of the cases. So I guess that's a redundant thing to ask. But what I want to get is what kind of tools are people using, and deployment patterns and things like that, to see what people are doing. And then obviously get around to the more cooperative mindset, like if you are deploying applications, are you using the same methods for infrastructure, or how does that work, to see what people are doing. So I guess the relatively short list of questions I have is what kind of tools are you using? Is it limited to only application deployment, or do you also use the same, or does that differ? What kind of tools do you want to look at in the future? And things like what I was thinking of is do you see a benefit of using the same deployment method for both infrastructure and application deployment or development? I guess that's three different scenarios where these things come into play. Does anyone have any thoughts about that, or like what we can? Does anyone see any particular goals of the user survey they think would be great to consider?
Actually, I think the structure in the meeting notes, so that starts with a goal and an action item trying to reach the consensus on the goal. I think this is a really good point where to start.
Yeah.
I had many ideas. I hope that I can write this down as a document, but failed with my schedule as usual. But I can share what I've had in mind, and I think it would be good to start a separate document where we could collaborate. I don't know what's the practice so far. Should I just comment on the meeting notes that are there, or how should we do that?
Yes, so I have a spreadsheet that I created, which I think is open for everyone. I think.
Could you show the link?
This is the questions, but I think we need a wider discussion around the goals and the principles, how we design the survey. so that we know how what we want to ask and what we will do with the questions after we have these.
Yeah, so what you want to do is create a business case, or try to set some goals.
Well, okay, for example, last time you mentioned that you'd like to run a regular survey. So to run, if we are running a regular survey, there are two things that come to mind. Either we expect to monitor a change in a community, for example, to monitor how our work in this working group is it having an impact? Is something changing? What are the trends? What's happening over time? For that, we need to have some kind of understanding what behavior or what tools or what we are monitoring, so that we could we use the similar questions in recurring surveys. Then if you think about the state of DevOps report, what the team behind it is doing, they are with each survey, they are studying a new concept. For example, what's the impact of cloud computing to the organizational performance? Probably we have ideas that may be important in cooperative delivery as well. And probably we want to study these ideas. We probably can't put everything into one survey. So probably we want to get an understanding what are the concepts that feel interesting or are common or present in the target audience that we want to study. We can use first survey to map out some subjects and focus on one of these subjects in the following survey. So, but these kind of things that to design the survey this way, we need a bit deeper discussion than just putting the questions in spreadsheet. Yeah. So this is why I think it should be a separate document where we can write down comment and maybe have a I don't know, discussion in Slack or somehow.
Are you?
Yep. Sorry, Josh. Go ahead.
Ray, are you saying the first survey should be to gather the concepts that we need to monitor, or are you saying we need to talk about the concepts we need to monitor and then choose one of them for the first survey?
I think the first survey should help to map the state of the art, to understand what practices are common. Is there some kind of relation to the team size, maybe the organizational size? This kind of probably the principles in an organization where you have just one development team with 5 members is pretty different with from something like Microsoft here. So we don't want to mix these results into one result or one conclusion. So we need to somehow define how we separate the audience or how we segment the audience, and what are the questions that help us map the state of the art, and then we can add a bit of what feels interesting for us, or where we want to get confirmation that this is a problem that we should be focusing on.
I'm with you on that. The only thing that I kind of circle back to is how do we coordinate this? Because I just looked at the tag app delivery repository, and what has been working in the GitOps working group has been having these. I've been using discussions to kind of this discussion on GitHub then to kind of at least get some idea of what we're going to do in one of these projects, if you like. and then the people that are interested in this particular subject then would have some sort of meeting where one would discuss like where to go from here, and try to get some action items and have actually some real goals to move by. And but I see that we on the tag after delivery there's discussions aren't enabled, issues work, but at the same time issues kind of just become at that point we could just make a Slack channel and discuss there, and which also is an option to just create a.
What I'm a bit worried is that the data is already fragmented over many channels, and looking at these 5 people in this meeting, I think we should not add to too many complexity. I think Google Docs document that's linked in the meeting notes that can be found there, and also we can share it in Slack once we have the initial data to start the discussion. We can go over the discussion on the next meeting, and once we feel that we agree on what's there, maybe then it's time to publish it to GitHub for a wider discussion, and where you can have changes pulled in through merge request or these kind of mechanisms.
Yeah. So does I start off right away creating a Google Docs as an idea, but would that be kind of like sufficient if we kind of just have a place where we can start outlining some sort of, I don't even know what to call it. I called it draft document.
Survey design.
Yeah.
In fact, I might have put some of these notes that I put in this meeting doc in that.
Yeah, if you can set up the document, and I have the access to this one, I can take a commitment to write the ideas I shared today there and build some kind of structure within next week, and then we'll have 1 week to collaborate on it before we have a next call.
Yeah, I just created it, and I think I made it open for everyone. If not, then let me know. Let's see. There you go. And anything, I'll help as much as possible. But again, like we keep on saying, we have everyone has a lot of things to do.
That's fine.
That's
totally understood.
Yeah, but that's great, Rain, and I really appreciate you stepping up a little there, because I just got as far as starting to kind of get some of these questions, but obviously at the same time it's kind of hard to get questions if I don't know what we're trying to figure out. That's so anything there, getting that that set up a little bit would be really good, and we can start drafting in that document. Have some offline talk, and obviously as this is a bi-weekly meeting, that can just be an agenda item going forward, and we'll just discuss what we're thinking so far. And
I think we should set some kind of goals in terms of deadlines, by what time, where we want to be.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll never get there.
Yeah, that's very true. You use as much time as you have, which if you have infinite time, it's not going to get done. So if we for the next meeting, because that's 2 weeks, we should at least have some sort of words written down on why we want to do it and what we want to get out of it, at least in like a broad sense, and then we can discuss that in the next meeting and see if anyone feel that we need to go in a certain direction or not. and that probably will work out, hopefully. If everyone agrees on that, does that sound good? Yeah. And obviously I'll interlink the survey question spreadsheet and things like that as well, just so we can work on both fronts if people want. If people just think of, obviously the things that are getting into that the survey question spreadsheet is not set in stone. It's just suggestions for questions, and then after a while we have a better clear goal on where we're going. It will be easy to select one of those, or select the questions that we want. All right. Josh, you're
I'm editing as we go, trying to get a bit of a flow here, so bear with me. Yeah.
No, it's fine. I can barely talk at this point. I've been working since early morning, so I can't type and talk at the same time, and let alone so good on you.
Yeah, I'm a good note taker. That's probably, yeah, a note taker extraordinaire. Maybe that's my ultimate title. I've taken notes in communities for a while. Anyway, but what I kind of did here was I took some of the stuff and moved it into that chat. Oh, I was going to mention one thing. Maybe we can open a GitHub issue. If there's not a discussion, it doesn't matter, but just an issue so that people are on the tag app delivery, they can, with this link to this, so they can find it. Those only.
Yeah.
I'll open a GitHub issue with link. Okay.
So what we've usually done in the other meetings is having some sort of action item list. So the result of our discussion then become an action item, which then someone gets. And I can open the GitHub discussion on that. I can smell the dinner getting done, so that's very distracting. All right, cool. I think that's all we need to talk about when it comes to survey, because obviously we don't have anything in particular to talk about. So it's limited how far we can get with that. And then the next one is patterns for patterns, which is which I think that's a rap song in the making. Patterns.
Yeah, so I'll take this one. This is kind of what I've been thinking about the past few weeks, I guess, few days, but is I kind of think like, and I talked to Thomas about this a little earlier, like one of the goals of the app delivery group is to provide like patterns and practices that can gradually, people can adopt and can become conventions and standards and blah, blah, blah. So I would like to create for our section of that app delivery some patterns, some stuff demonstrating, infrastructure delivery with app delivery. And I've already been doing this. So this is really just kind of sharing the vision, sharing the idea, make sure everyone's on board. Basically, what is happening now is I'm utilizing, and I hope other people will come and party on this with me, is we have Potato Head, which is kind of a little bit of, it's not huge, but it's a little bit of a foundation for building patterns on top of. And I want to utilize that, but I want to just make sure everyone's on board with how I want to do it. So I want to start by dropping an issue in, say, the tag app delivery repo that says, hey, I propose this, rough idea of the pattern, a rough architecture. Like I anticipate using, actually, I have an example, proposal one, because better one than none. So let's take my example to kind of walk you through this. So the example I want to work on in the next few weeks is deploying a database to one of many providers in a relatively generic way. I'd like to use Crossplane. So let's say I'm going to get a Postgres database in Azure, in AWS, in Google. Crunchy Data also has a service. I'd like to show how that would work too. and also get back a binding, which means, pretty much just a URL and username and password that the app can use. I actually literally had this problem at my last place, and it's much harder than you would think to solve. We ended up with a Vault sidecar that called into the Vault engine, which dynamically generated a secret using the Vault secrets engine, which might be that's one proposal for getting that I could put in the proposal for getting. Another one that I'd really like to look into actually is the service binding operator, which I think Red Hat has been pretty involved in, but I've been watching it for a while. So that's that. I would propose all this in like the GitHub issue. Hey, I'd like to demonstrate a database provisioning generically, getting the binding, a Spring Boot app on top or something like that, or a Node app or something that uses that binding to make a call. Yeah, so I'd put that on the GitHub issue. People could chime in and say, well, maybe try it this way. Are you doing it this way? Whatever. It's still relatively early days. My next step, kind of in line actually, is to start implementing it. And that I think is really important. Like I'd like to code on the ground, code talks, start implementing the pattern. So like in this case, Potato Head is I'm envisioning, and I've been talking with Thomas about that. So I did a refactor last week, and one of the ideas is to make it more extensible. Like I'd like to be, it's just a Go API. I'd like to be able to add just a handler that calls a database instead of returning just some static assets, which is what it does now. So I would start, that's my ideas. I'll add a handler, I'll add this pattern in Potato Head as a branch, a link to it from the GitHub issue that I open. And that's kind of like advancing the proposal, like here, I did it in practice. I think you can run this yourself. Here's the instructions. Here's a rough, it may not be perfect the first iteration. So that would be kind of step 2, implementing it. And then, and I guess, step 3, what did I leverage and extend shared foundation? So I guess, that's kind of part of the implementation is, okay, I'm going to bring in Crossplane and see if that can work here, maybe even talk to them about it. I'll bring in, the Vault agent or service binding agent. And I'll keep iterating both in the issue and in the repo and then refine. So it's kind of do it, and then do it better. And then that do it better stage should culminate. I think the outcome should be a complete doc, a tutorial. I think that the outcome of any pattern needs to be a doc where somebody can come in and read through it and implement it and run it themselves. That's you could be working on it as you go, but like that will be the bow. I've reached 1.0, when I can publish a doc that's really working, maybe a test 2 and 10 tests.
Yeah, if we this would really work really well if we actually had discussions on, to be honest, because having working on issues are usually like a one-way street. So you start at the top and you go down and etc. But the way that discussion works is kind of better for these kind of things, because you would ask for alternatives, and then someone would suggest that, and then that would get voted up. So it would automatically become something that would be more clear that people are more into or not. While in issues, you can't just get a lot of discussions downwards, and you'll have to kind of figure out where to go from there. So I don't know if that's a thing we take up with anyone that has any access for the tag app delivery repository, but it should probably be on at this point, I guess.
Okay, that's good feedback. Yeah, I have never really used discussion, so I didn't even bring it up, but whatever works best.
It's heavily used in the GitOps working group or open GitOps repositories, and it works. This is exactly this thing that actually is designed for. While issue is like the name says, an issue. So you should be iterating downwards and then close it. And so discussion would probably work better in this case. And I like the idea of having like a, I guess, problem that you want to solve. And then you say like, this is the kind of the way that I think that, you know, these are the options that I can think of. And then have people commenting on that makes for a better, you know, the outcome would probably be better at that point. The only thing that I think would be good is for if you're going to leverage cross-plane, how does that actually work in, like, how is that the binding element? Is that enough of a binding element, or do we also want to then drag in, you know, deployment patterns or something like that to kind of, like, why are you using cross-plane? Because in a GitOps scenario, that means you could do this to deploy the entire chain, for instance. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly the kind of questions I would like it to surface. Exactly. Like it can write a secret to Kubernetes, right? So is that sufficient for binding? Totally down with that.
Mm.
And what you said, by the way, makes me think like we could have, I'm thinking what I should do here is open an issue in the tag app delivery about the patterns for patterns, a general discussion. Here's the pattern for patterns. And then open an issue for my specific pattern about databases and credentials.
Yeah, that makes sense. We should also just open an issue about having enabled discussions. That's a easy one to get done. I can actually do that now. Well.
Oh, okay. Is that how we should do like logistical things? I was putting them at the top of this list here.
No, I just know that I'm gonna forget about it. So I can do it, and I'm just opening an issue, not submitting it, just so I remember that I was supposed to be doing it.
Okay.
But having discussions in the tag app delivery repository is probably going to be helpful for many of these things. Unless we want to branch out and have our own thing, which then again doesn't get any activity on the tag app delivery, which is not good.
Yeah, no, I think I would like to keep it in tag app delivery, right? It's not like that place is so busy that
there's a lot of and obviously it's a different kind of beast, the GitOps working group and the open GitOps project, but at the same time it's like there's so much stuff happening there that doesn't kind of trickle down to the tag, because it's separate, it's in a different repository, it's a different organization, everything like that. So I think it's just, and obviously it's easier because if we make our own organization, we don't have to ask for access for stuff, weirdly enough. So I kind of get why people have been doing it that way, but I think we should try to stick with the one place to just get more activity. I can see that there's I think we need more of these like problems. I kind of can't figure out a different word to use, but like if people have pain points, I guess that's the fancy way of saying that, they should be able to kind of just, even at don't have anything thought of, just this is a thing that I can't really figure out what to do, and then have that discussion, and if that is something that people are interested in, that's kind of like a candidate to create not a pattern, but at least a set of patterns around that problem. At that and that's fine, and that's probably something that discussions also will help with. But when we have these kind of set and start creating patterns, are we then just creating a in the corporate delivery working group directory, are we then just going to have a patterns folder and serialize them 001 to whatever, or with a date, or I can see it gets kind of like messy really quick. You have like 600 markdown documents.
Yeah, I captured that in the notes as where should they be published, and yeah, I agree. It kind of depends on what they end up looking like. Like the Potato Head stuff will start in that repo, but then like maybe the tutorial, the document maybe should not. I mean, maybe it's a different. Maybe there's just a basic README there, and the actual tutorial is a folder in the app delivery repo.
Yeah,
maybe it can kind of. It's an important question. Maybe it's something we can. I'd love to keep that repo like as much there as possible, because that's like a nice center of gravity for everything. So
yes, and obviously, if it is in the corporate delivery working group, people will find it there, and then again, maybe want to be part of the corporate delivery working group and help with these things. So it's better to get it there. I just can't really see where it should be, like how that looks, and obviously at the start, if we have a couple of patterns, that's fine, but at a certain point we're going to have a lot, and the way that GitHub structured this, if we had a README with like links to everything, so you could kind of go through, that's kind of cool. But the problem is if the patterns is in the same directory, then you're not going to see the README until you get past like 600 files. So like how do you want that? Maybe we can just add on the corporate delivery README, maybe move the charter related stuff into its own directory, and then have patterns in its own directory, and then use the README to just have links for everything. Maybe that's a better way to structure stuff. So you get in at that point and kind of just see it straight away.
Yeah, that's actually kind of what I was thinking there. That if there was, it might even just be a list of, if you were, some of these big companies might have like a data sheet for all of the tutorials that they offer. That kind of thing would end up in the main repo, and maybe there would be a homepage that lists them all. Like even if you look at Potato Head today, it's actually got something like that on the first page. It's a little bit scrolling down, but like it says delivery scenarios, and then it's just a bunch of links to READMEs for Flux, Argo CD, and blah blah blah. So that maybe we take a little bit on that. I don't know if you all have seen that.
I'm a fast typer. I was already there. But yeah. Again, that's we can use Potato Head as like the service that we use for these examples, but at the same time, the pattern should be in the tag app delivery / cooperative delivery working group structure, just to make it actually belong to us. But I think we're gonna extensively use Potato Head, so it's and they can interlink in between as well. So the Potato Head can then say, all right, you want to look at these scenarios, here's a description of that pattern, and then it's going to be linking to the actual pattern in the tag app delivery repository. I have an idea for things, which is always a bad thing, and I'll if you're still writing, maybe I'll take an action item on organizing a little bit in the corporate delivery directory. Keep on going back and forth between folder and directory. Depends on who I'm talking to. What's right. People. And create a place for patterns for now, and then obviously as we haven't started working on any of the patterns, as soon as we have at least one, we can see if that works out.
Exactly.
All right, cool. Any other comments on patterns for patterns? First, I thought it was a rap album, but now I'm more thinking of a gent metal thing, because there's a lot of rhythmic patterns there. So that might be it.
It's like where else we have? We have application sets, which are like an application of applications. I sometimes think of like OLM as like an that's operator lifecycle manager, operator of operators. Like we have this meta. It gets more meta.
We keep on adding abstractions, that's our job. As you know, we abstract the abstraction and then we'll see what happens.
That's right. Who makes a better one? Okay, so one last thing I just want to mention. I guess it was somebody that was on this call like a month ago brought this up, and it was like, yes, that's actually really smart, and we should keep this in our thing. So I just want to bring it up. I think I'm going to open an issue just to keep it in our backlog. And what it's about is, so one of the big, in my opinion, promises of cloud is that, you can automate delivery of infrastructure. But we still have so many inconsistencies in describing that infrastructure and the APIs that you use. Like, of course, we know like AWS, Azure, Google all have different APIs and different resource models. And Kubernetes is helping with that. I think that's probably why it's pretty popular. It gives like a standard API, standard resource model. But it's still pretty basic. In fact, it doesn't really describe much of anything. You don't even have to use spec and status if you don't want in your Kubernetes. That's kind of become accepted now that you do a spec and status. But certainly some of the older, resources in Kubernetes don't have that. Anyway. So, and then within the spec though, there's lots more. Like, let's say I want to return a secret. Is there a standard way to do that? Let's say I want to request certain attributes from the database I'm provisioning. Is there a standard way to do that? That kind of, the different clouds, everybody's doing things like that. Like CloudFormation has a concept of a resource with attributes. Kubernetes, you could just say, well, it's in the spec field. But it's too loose. And we're seeing people like try to further describe the model. That's like Crossplane is a good example. They have something called XRM, which stands for Crossplane Resource Model, where they've added more definition within the spec. Like, you should use these fields. We're going to put the secrets here, that kind of thing. The person that was on a couple weeks, I think his name was Scott, brought up Knative's duck types as another kind of example. Knative has like, it's been a while since I looked, but like they have the concept of like a schedulable or a runnable. Well, it's the same idea, but like a schedulable would be something that I could invoke certain things on, or that has certain properties. You see, but that's the idea. Like, and other ones that I put a list in here. I put CloudFormation, Terraform, Kubernetes itself, but if Terraform is a good example. Actually, I was talking with Thomas about this earlier, because he was trying to coordinate some stuff with Terraform and some stuff with YAML and struggling with it. So that's, another example of like, how can we bring these models together? And the reason why it's important is by getting more consistency for that spec. It's going to make it easier for app devs or whoever it is to provision that infrastructure. If they, even if they're, forget about a standard, even if they're at least loosely similar, that helps. And we're getting there a little with Kubernetes. And certainly as it, if we can define something like Kubernetes, like the schedulable, or it's, then I can, to provision a database, there's only like, one place where I put in custom properties, and the rest is predictable from a standard. Yeah. So that's my kind of spiel, kind of my pitch on why, gathering to, I think it's really early days on this. Like, I think people need to kind of grasp what I'm kind of trying to get at. Like, hey, if we can standardize the model, standardize the API further, then we can make it easier to deploy. But I think the first step is just kind of gathering that stuff together. Like, just, hey, you guys are doing it this way, you are all doing it this way. Every project, like Red Hat, has a whole library of like common types. common specs and common patterns, conditions is another example. There's just so many. Can we start gathering those, and maybe we can go from there and find synergies and encourage synergies.
How do we go on to then create something that can be valuable, at least in the form of, not particularly like a standard, but at least like get the discussion going and have people like, what can we create? Like we can look through the Kubernetes resource management model and the different model types that the different solutions have, and kind of like draw parallels and find like a common pattern, I guess. But will that help in the future for when people are creating? People are going to create more tools all the time and new things, and the open API standard and stuff like that, it kind of came, and then all of a sudden people aren't using it, and so it's like, what can we do to help in that in that aspect? What can we do there? Are we creating some sort of keep on going back to documents and white papers, but are we creating something like that, or are we trying to make a discussion forum for the creators of these tools, or
To be honest, I don't know. I think that's exactly where I'm getting at. Like, I know that there's a proliferation of these models, and that getting a handle on them would help, even if like we can't change them at all. So yeah, what my next steps would be, if I have time, or what I would think another person's steps might be, would be just gathering together and demonstrating, to deploy a database or a queue or an observability system, whatever it is. Here's how you would do it with the Kubernetes resource model. Here's how Crossplane does it. Here's how you do it in Terraform. Maybe you even stand up a Terraform operator or something, show the same thing in 5 different ways, and then show like, look, the YAML manifest looks almost the exact same in all 5 of these, but there's just little differences. Mm. And then go from there. I don't know. Like, do we go then to the vendor and say, hey, for version 2, maybe, get closer to what these folks are doing? Like, conditions is, I think, a good example. Do you know about like conditions and Kubernetes resources and statuses? Like, that's become kind of a de facto standard, even though I don't even know if it's described anywhere. Like, that would be the kind of thing that we might, arrive at. There might be a secrets under status. You might have a secrets attribute, which says, here's path to secrets. And then everybody knows that's where, that kind of thing. Mm. I think that's got to emerge. That's kind of what, like, we don't have to, if we're successful, I guess we should define an outcome. Maybe in 2 years, we would see synergies, see similarities between the models used in different projects.
Yeah, I think the standardization of these things are kind of important as well, because just see how like service mesh, became a service mesh, which someone said at some point, and then you kind of get like a standardization on how service meshes should actually work, and what kind of endpoints should that have, and how do you do traffic handling, how do you, etc. And that kind of became a standard, and all of a sudden you have several service meshes that you can kind of interchain because they are speaking the same language. There's
SMI.
Yeah, but there's a lot of things here when it comes to, for instance, for Terraform, it's again, it's an abstraction level, it's a domain-specific language created on top of JSON, which then is something that just the Terraform binary file can then look at and understand that this is how it's supposed to be compared to what's already there. How do we is it there are going to be some differences there, just like stylistic differences, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Do we want to propose a I like the idea of infrastructure resource model standards. I just don't know what that, I don't know I can kind of imagine what that would be, but at the same time I'm not really sure how far into the deep end one would go with something like that. Also, it's a big undertaking, and obviously
if I may reflect a bit, for me what it reminded me was open application model. We've been working with that a lot lately. It initially, if you look at it, it feels kind of basic. You have an application that's a list of components, and you have components there. You have traits, but when you dig deeper, you can pretty much describe all kinds of scenarios with this model. And since this model is not specific to a technology, yes, there is kubevela, but they've tried to keep the model independent of the technology. You can pretty much map the same model onto different implementations, whether it's Kubernetes with Crossplane, whether it's Kubernetes with AWS. What's the name of the Kubernetes controllers at the moment? And you can map this model onto different tools and different implementations. Now, if we wanted to add infrastructure description to this, probably there's a hacky way to do it with combining Crossplane with Kubernetes, for example. But I think and I feel that this is not the subject that has been discussed or explored deeply. So I think if we wanted to do something with these models, then trying to come up with some kind of simple generalization that would describe the essence of each of these technical implementations, and that could be translated back to Terraform and Crossplane. This could be helpful to give a common vocabulary or something like that for describing infrastructure. Then again, what's the practical implementation for this? Is it just an interesting resource subject, or who's going to benefit from it? And I'm not sure. So it sounds interesting. But then again, the business case or the motivation behind it should be a bit more clear, at least for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think I would say I'll just take a shot at that. Like the business, to me, I think it's making it easier for app developers. Like if they have a consistent resource model, then there's less cognitive load. So that's one actually. And then another one is tool developers. Like if there's a consistent model, then the tools can interact with that without needing to be bespoke for every last thing that comes out.
Sold.
But I'll write that in.
We're doing a lot of work on developer experience and making it easy for developers to describe their application, no matter what's the technical implementation in the backend. This is where we are struggling, and this is the domain that could benefit from this kind of model.
There. Again, I'm a Kubernetes fanboy, so I kind of just want to put everything in Kubernetes. But at the same time, I understand when you shouldn't do that. The problem I have is that I talk to developers who are the other way, who for some reason don't want to put stuff into Kubernetes and can't really get away from that. No matter what the use case are, they always say no, it's going to be too complicated. Having like even helping people to kind of like this is the scenario, this is the service that you're creating, this is the application that you're creating, that can run on, you know, these are the platforms where that would be, you know, a better fit, and you can, you know, and how you can then, trying to think while talking, that's not really helping me, and how can you then, you know, benefit from that platform for the thing that you're actually trying to develop. You know, I'm trying to get people to understand the operator model at work, and you know, creating controllers and stuff like that, which they never thought that that's how it worked in you know, in Kubernetes, because they don't know Kubernetes, so they don't see that opportunity to use that as a, you know, as a beneficial thing, if that makes sense. So even getting things like, again, going back to patterns, apparently I don't have any other words, but having some sort of like deployment pattern for certain type of application development would also probably be something that people could find at least useful, at least get like a pointer in the right direction. And there's probably, there are resources on that, but at the same time, you only find what you're trying to find, I guess. So people that don't want to do something in a certain way kind of keep on finding like the evidence for that they shouldn't do it. So having some sort of like a neutral ground where these things are explored, and obviously never exclude one thing, but at least like, you know, you probably would get more out of, you know, doing it in a certain way. That kind of also ties into how you, again, infrastructure resource models. How do you utilize and deploy certain infrastructure pieces for in your development process? So I think there's a lot of things we can talk about, you know, towards that. Again, we're really good to have some sort of, you know, a higher plan, something more, you know, something more tangent to that we can actually see, okay, this is what we're trying to do. That would at least help me to contribute to something like that.
One thing that I've noticed while working with open application model is that when you are talking about deploying an application to Kubernetes, often the discussion turns into how do you do something on Kubernetes, or what's the best way to do this on Kubernetes, and not how do you want to describe your application or what your application should look like. So by switching to the open application model, and this being kind of technology independent, this has helped us to keep the discussion on the applications and application design, and less about what's the technology details, how we are going to deploy it. So,
so what we want to do is take the open application model and then kind of just get infrastructure in there underneath as well. Is that?
I think the point here is we should all go into OAM, understand it, and see where it could fit. But you know, we don't really know where. I know we want to define where we're going a year from now, but I think part of it is discovery at this point.
Yeah,
I think the goal shouldn't be to create a new standard in first iteration. And the goal shouldn't be to add a new extension to open application model. But I think if we want to explore these models, trying to figure out how to describe an infrastructure without limiting yourself to one specific cloud vendor or a technology stack, this could be an interesting exercise.
And obviously I'm gonna talk about Terraform, and you know, because that's kind of what I do. But Terraform is kind of doing that. You know, you don't limit yourself. You're not even limiting yourself to HCL. because you have the CDK for Terraform. So, you know, if I want to write Terraform in Go, I can do that. So you aren't limiting yourself in any way, even like the deployment method, the way that you want to define it. It's still like the Terraform way of doing it, but you don't have to. You can write it in C# if you want to, and you can run it on any cloud, both you know public or private. So
and that should be, that's why Terraform should be one of the examples. Yeah, that's totally cool.
And when you think about Terraform resource providers, you have one for AWS, you have another for Azure. They are cloud specific, and they are this for a reason. So there's a reason why they have not defined the unified interface for all clouds. You kind of start losing the functionality. So we have to keep this in mind. Every abstraction that you create will lock you out of something.
That will be Microsoft's and Google's and Amazon's interests. But that we have, I mean, we represent the end user community. Like, yeah, they want the functionality, but they also want ease of use. So we have to find the balance.
Mm. But then again, obviously, you know, they need to create their own system. But you know, when we then use tools like Terraform, for instance, they do the abstraction level again. And the only thing that you have to think of is that one way of creating your resources, be it in Azure, Google Cloud, or AWS, it's still the same way of doing that, because you know the tool is doing the translation.
That's a debate, I would say, between Crossplane and Terraform. I mean, Crossplane is genericizing databases, so but Terraform doesn't. Like, yeah. But that's great. They should have that debate in the app delivery forum. That would be awesome.
Yeah, and that actually could be a thing to look more into, like the way that Crossplane is you know, totally removing everything that has to do with, or totally, you know, more or less totally removing you know, the platform specific things, while in Terraform you are just having a different way of talking to the APIs, and then you would have to, you know, adhere to whatever the API wants to have. Would it be, you know, what would Terraform look like if they did it? If you're saying I want a database, like would that work even at that point? Probably not. But, cool. Well, we're on time, or overtime, I guess.
Oh yeah, wow, we really are. Okay, I think on this I will try. I think I'll open an issue if that's all right with you. I wanted to just, but like, or a discussion if we can get those going. Just so we can have an asynchronous chat about it and let other people know too. So that'll be my action on this.
I'll as soon as I'm out of the meeting, so I actually can, you know, think what I'm writing. I'm gonna open the issue on the discussion. I lost the window now. There we go. Yeah, okay. So I'm gonna write that issue and get that submitted, and I'll see if people pick up on it.
And no rush, Robert. It's also, by the way, that there's a holiday in America tomorrow, so things are quiet around here. My wife's like, you have a meeting on the day before the holiday, everyone's taking off. I'm like, that's international, you know?
Yeah.
It's not just America.
The KubeCon is in the on the you know, Liberation Day of Norway. So I'm still thinking of going. I'll just go wave a Norwegian flag while I'm there.
All right. Well, this is being recorded.
All right. Cool. Thanks, y'all. You know, good discussion. I think this will help. And you know, next meeting is in 2 weeks. But at you know, at that point, the server draft document, which, you know, sounded fancy when I was writing it, but in hindsight, will at least have something in it that kind of hopefully will help us, you know, steer in one direction. Rather than all direction at the same time.
Awesome.
Right. I'll take some time to work on this document.
Yeah, and feel free to just reach out on Slack or something if you want to discuss something that, or anything when it comes to the corporate delivery working group. But you know, this in particular.
Yeah, and you can ping us or ping me at least, and probably Robert too, individually if you need. You know, you don't have to do it in the main chat. It's nice. That's the way I'm communicating with people, with all of you now.
Yeah.
At least it gives us a channel.
Yeah. All right. Thanks all. Have a good
Thank
one.
you.
Thanks. Bye.
Peace. Bye.